An activist group in Michigan is working on a ballot measure that could do a lot to massively reform how congressional districts in Michigan are drawn. And in Michigan, they have historically and recently been drawn in a way that is directly beneficial in a partisan sense for Republicans. But in any event, this is what they're trying to do. They acquired a bunch of signatures necessary to get it on the ballot in 2018. They got 425,000 signatures, which is no mean feat. That takes a lot of volunteers and a lot of effort. And it's over 100,000 more than they need to qualify. So even when people come in and try to say that some of them are fake or whatever, they've got a nice little buffer there. So what would their ballot initiative do? It aims to make the redistricting process more fair by amending the Michigan Constitution to create a 13-member redistricting commission with 4 Democrats, 4 Republicans, and 5 independents. So these would be non-politicians. They can't even be a family of politicians as well. They can't be elected officials, lobbyists, consultants, or their family members. None of that. They're supposed to be ideally regular people and a broad mix of political positions. Although I have some potential problems with that, but they have to start somewhere. In addition, while the redistricting process in most states goes on literally behind closed doors, it uses sophisticated software to create these districts that look insane, and people have no idea how it happens, what the timetable is for, any of that. This commission would be required to hold at least 10 public hearings as part of the redistricting process, giving the public an opportunity to ask questions and have their concerns be heard by the commission. And so that is the goal, to set this up. It's an experiment that could hopefully make things more equitable in Michigan. Now, why is this a concern in Michigan? Well, following the 2010 census, Michigan Republicans controlled the redistricting process and drew the lines in such a way that Republicans gained an advantage of 2 to 3 additional seats in Congress. They didn't become more popular in Michigan, but simply because they controlled this process, you suddenly create 2 to 3 additional Republican congressmen. And this is something that we've experienced across the country.
So it's largely Republicans that drive this effort. From time to time, Democrats play along.
Yes.
Now you say, wait, why would the Democratic Party want to lose 2 or 3 seats in a state like Michigan? Well, there's a very good reason for that, because they take more Republican, they design a district so that Republicans can win narrowly by 55, 45, 52, 48, etc. So that way they pick up more seats. And then they give Democrats districts that are like 80, 90% Democrat. So now those Democratic incumbents are thrilled because they're never ever going to lose. So now they've screwed over the rest of the state and Democratic voters because they made their district really safe, but at the expense of handing over
possibly control of Congress.
That's right.
But it's good for them individually.
Yes. So that's why some Democrats play along with this. That's why you need someone like this group to come out of nowhere and go, I don't have a horse in this race about Republicans or Democrats, and I don't care what their politics are. I care about the process and the system, right? So saying, you know what, we're not gonna leave it to the politicians, they're all corrupted. We're gonna actually have regular people do it. I love that. I think this is a wonderful movement. The woman who started, we're gonna ask her to be on Rebel headquarters soon, because it's such a great organic thing that grew up out of Michigan. And then so a Republican operative then said, well, number one, he admitted, and this was a rare moment of honesty for a Republican operative. He said, wow, that was amazing. Normally you have to spend millions of dollars to do a ballot initiative like this. They did it organically, just with volunteers. So he's like, you're gonna put some of us out of business. So
well, and in the end, they'll probably end up going up against a multi-million-dollar campaign to stop it.
Led by that guy.
Exactly.
Yes. No, that's what's gonna happen.
Yes.
Okay. So he had to admit, man, that was amazing. People power does work. But then he went and turned around and said, now, look, now that he's starting to lobby against it, he's like, you don't want neophytes who don't understand the system drawing these districts. No, yes, I do. I absolutely, positively do. Rather than the corrupt, scummy guys who go into back rooms and do it for their own self-interest and draw preposterous districts so that the politicians pick their voters instead of the voters picking their politicians.
Yes.
No, I don't want that old system. That old system is terrible.
Yeah.
I love this new idea. I would 1,000 times rather have quote unquote neophytes. In other words, actual citizens draw this up. And by the way, they have to do it publicly. And there'll be a lot of, it'll be open, it'll be transparent, there'll be 1,000 comments on it. Democrats and Republicans will get to weigh in on it. And so if they draw a district like this for anyone's benefit, people call them out. They go, wait a minute, this isn't citizens drawing that district. If it's a Democratic plan, you will know it immediately based on how they draw the districts.
Exactly.
Okay, and it's got to survive that process. It's a great idea. This is how you take democracy back.
And it's entirely possible that the actual distribution of how you create the blah, 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 all of that, it could need to be iterated on. But the current system is already inherently flawed, and so any experimentation is a good thing when it comes to this area. And I would add on to your concerns about how some Democrats go along with the process to sort of secure their seat at the expense of the majority, but also it's entirely possible, you can't necessarily find great examples of it in the past few decades, that when the Democrats get in charge of the states, they'll also manipulate the voters into safe districts for themselves. And that's not what we want. What we want is for roughly the popularity of a party to represent the number of seats they have in government. And that's not what we have right now. I mean, an example I was talking about with someone this morning is, we just had this tax bill get passed last night, $1.5 trillion redistributed from the middle and working class to the wealthiest people in America. And who actually made that happen? A Republican Congress voted for it that got fewer votes than Democratic congressional candidates got in the last election. It was also voted for by Republican Senate candidates who got fewer votes than the Democratic Senate candidates in that year. And it's going to be signed by a Republican president who got 3 million votes less than the Democratic presidential candidate. Our system is inherently rigged against the will of the people, and that needs to change. Now, this is just at one state, but perhaps if it can exist here, then we can add it to more states and we can hopefully get something more approaching an actual democracy.
You just watched a video by the Young Turks, home of the revolution. If you'd like to get a lot more than that, get the full show by becoming a member. tytnetwork.com/join.